I keep trying to tell myself I need to make fewer of these videos. It's taking me too long to get through this book. But uh, almost every letter, has something that I think, man, that's really interesting. The whole reason I'm making these videos is actually not because I want to share with other people so much as the way my memory works. I've got horrible retention. I actually intend to listen to these videos, like maybe I'll make them into MP3s or something, and listen to them later, just to remind myself the things that I learned. That's the only reason I'm really making these. Um, so that's why whenever I come across something interesting that I want to remember, I make a video of it. This letter 27 from Seneca uh, is especially interesting because there's three different things. Two of them, I'm just going to read it. I'm not going to really give much commentary. I'm just going to read it. I think it's good. And I think I'll just go ahead and go straight through. Um, they're seemingly disconnected. The first one actually leads directly to the other. I'll just do it. Let's read it. Um, lost my place. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Even when they're over, pleasures of a depraved nature are apt to carry feelings of dissatisfaction. Oh my gosh, is that true? Um, in the same way as a criminal's anxiety doesn't end with the commission of a crime, even if it's undetected at the time. Makes me think of the guilty run when no one pursues. Uh, Such pleasures are insubstantial and unreliable. Even if they don't do one any harm, they're fleeting in character. Look around for some enduring good instead. And I thought that's from the first paragraph. Actually, it's kind of an unusually long paragraph for Seneca. Um, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah. So then Seneca talks about how this is it's a weird story. He's illustrating that these are characteristics that you have to develop yourself. They're not um, they're not something that you can like delegate to other people. That's the word that he uses. Well, that's the English translation of whatever he used is delegate. This would be in classical Latin, I assume. Um, tells a story about like someone trying to delegate. Uh, Supposedly, this is a true story. A guy named Sabinus. What was this? He was a really rich guy, but I guess he was just really scatterbrained, very absent-minded. Um, but he always wanted to appear really intelligent at parties. So since he couldn't remember things, and this describes me. That part describes me that I'm scattered. I don't remember things. I would never do what Sabinus did. This was nuts. He he bought slaves for the sole purpose of having those slaves memorize things like the Odyssey and the Greek and Trojan myths and things like that. Hesiod. It's just this bizarre thing. He would have these slaves memorize these things so that they would be basically an extension of his own brain. So if he's at a party and he couldn't remember a reference to something, he'd point out, say, "Hey, you're the slave that memorized Hesiod. No, you're the slave that memorized Homer. What am I trying to think of?" And he, basically he tries to have those slaves fill in those gaps, I guess. Um, and it was just this bizarre thing to do, and a guy who named Satelius Satelius. So Sabinus was apparently not in good physical health. And Satelius said, "Hey, you should take up wrestling." And then Sabinus says, "How could I do that? It's all I can do to stay alive." And Satelius answers, says, "Now please don't say that. Look how many slaves you've got in perfect physical condition. So you should take up wrestling by having someone else do wrestling." Um, and it ends with this: a sound mind can neither be bought nor borrowed. In other words, you have to work for it. And if it were for sale, I doubt whether it would find a buyer. And yet unsound ones are being purchased every day. And that made me think of AI. And it's kind of funny, though. Um, Here I am. I'm just talking about a guy who can't remember things, and I can't remember this guy's name. Socrates. Socrates would have said that about writing, from what I understand. This could be internet nonsense. This isn't something I read in an official source, but like from what I understand, Socrates thought that writing things down sort of weakened your mind because it didn't let you memorize things. But it didn't let you, but didn't you made you less dependent on things on memorizing, so it weakened your mind. But anyway. Um, Now you could say it's like AI because you're using AI to kind of to be kind of an extension of your brain. And I say that I use AI, but not in the same way. I use AI to replace a search engine. That's a different story because I hate search engines. They're awful. But I know a lot of people. I'm a software developer, and there's a thing called vibe coding now. And I barely know what it is, and I don't want to be too critical of it just because I don't really know what it is. But I do know that it's using AI to like write your code for you, and that can cause problems. But I'm also, like I said, I don't know much about it. But the point being is that a sound mind can neither be bought nor borrowed. So you should be kind of careful with that AI, I think, because if it's not you doing the thinking, it's not you that can. Then you're going to be dependent on that, and they may not be able to do that. That's technically true of employees. So, like, if you have an employee that does something, I did not think I'd be going on this long about this. So, if you hired an employee to do something for you, you're dependent on that employee to do it right. If that employee is gone, or if they're incapable of fixing what they've done, then then you're going to be, SOL, pardon my language, I didn't actually even say, but, uh, and that's something that happened to me. We've had, I can think of off the top of my head, two software developers that have had a massive impact on our code base. They were both awful, and no one understands how their code was working. And we finally let them go, but they did a lot of damage, and we're still to this day dealing with the destruction that they've caused. Um, and it's a little bit like Sabinus. At the same time, though, you can't just say, "Hey, have no employees." But the difference, though, is that Sabinus was trying to use that as an extension of his own mind. He wasn't trying to use them as employees, and that's just it didn't work, obviously. And that is one thing that I'm kind of concerned about with AI. But AI is one of those things we will just see what the results are. But then the last thing, he always says, "I looked up what is meant by this. What I pay you, what I owe you." But that's for the purposes of these videos. I don't really care about that. Like what that means. Um, Poverty. So this is something from. I'll just read the last paragraph. It's not long. "But let me pay you what I owe you and say goodbye." That's the part that I don't care about. "Poverty," so this is quoting Epicurus, "poverty brought into accord with the law of nature is wealth." Poverty brought into accord with the law of nature is wealth. That's not exactly new. I mean, to like these videos, I said something to that effect previously, but I still thought that the point that he makes later was good enough that I would say something about it again. Epicurus is constantly saying this in one way or another. But something that can never be learnt too thoroughly can never be said too often. want to repeat that, ironically. Something that can never be learnt too thoroughly can never be said too often. Ironically, that's why I'm making these videos, because I'm terribly afraid that I'm going to forget anything good that I learned. So I want to learn. I want to say it too often so that I can learn it thoroughly. And that's why Christians for thousands of years, they don't just read Paul's letters and a letter from Paul and say, "Oh, that's good. Maybe I'll read that again in 20 years if I forget, but I'm good." They don't do that. They read it over and over again. They read the Psalms over and over again because they really want it to solidify in their mind. There are some books where it's okay to read it only once. Like I'm reading through the Harry Potter books right now. I don't even know if I'll read it a second time. Might. I mean, they're really good, so I might, but I don't know if I don't currently have any plans to reread them. I read Lord of the Rings 20 years ago, and I plan to reread them soon, just because I want to. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Gone on. That was blathering, but so something that can never be learnt too thoroughly can never be said too often. With some people, you only need to point to a remedy. Others need to have it rammed into them. And I think I'm in the latter category, honestly. Alrighty.